From underwater bombers from the Second World War to a horde of guns discovered by fishermen, here are 10 of the coolest and most impressive underwater discoveries. Number 10. Dornier Do 17 bomber. First up is the Dornier Do 17 bomber, which sat submerged under 50 feet of salt water for at least 72 years before being rescued. It was originally shot down during the Battle of Britain in 1941. But what's really fascinating is that even though the Dornier Do 17 was widely produced during the Second World War, there are almost no complete examples still remaining. This most recent airplane, discovered off the coast of Kent in 2008, even though it's in atrocious condition, is the most complete Dornier Do 17 that historians know about. That's probably why the Royal Air Force Museum in England went through great lengths to raise the ship from the seabed and then transport it to their museum, where they plan to restore the aircraft and its historical significance. Even though it was in rough shape, the data plate was still legible on the fuselage, confirming the exact identity of the warplane. As for the Dornier Do 17, it was a light bomber produced by Nazi Germany, also sometimes called the Flying Pencil. This particular vehicle had been operating out of an airbase in Belgium and was carrying 16 bombs on its way to England when it became separated from the rest of its formation and was attacked by the 264 British Squadron. The Dornier Do 17 had to make an emergency landing after its engines were destroyed, at which point the German pilots were captured and sent to a POW camp, except for 2 of the crew who died from their injuries. Number 9. A lot of guns. There are guns rusting away at the bottoms of riverbeds all across the world. But in the North Oconee River near downtown Athens, there are quite a few more guns than one might expect. Jacob Cowart and his brother Jacob Cowart managed to pull over 20 guns out of the river using a magnet fishing rod. It all started during the COVID-19 pandemic when the brothers had nothing to do during the day. Adam ended up purchasing a magnet fishing rod from the internet, and he and his brother began fishing over bridges to see what they could find. They were surprised when, in a single day, they managed to pull 9 firearms out of the river near downtown Athens. Over a period of about a month, fishing 1 or 2 days a week, they collected over 20 rusty firearms from the riverbed. Most of them were covered in rust, and some were corroded beyond recognition. But they were all definitely firearms. Of course, nobody knows what all these guns were used for or why they were thrown into the river. The brothers did share the photographs of the guns with the local Clark County Police Department, as some still had serial numbers visible. It's unclear whether any of the weapons were used in a murder, but considering there were 20 of them underneath a bridge, it's likely at least one of them was used for nefarious purposes. The brothers even found a World War I rifle from 1917. Number 8. World War II Enigma machine. A very cool relic from World War II has recently been discovered at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Underwater archaeologists made the incredible find in 2020 while searching the bottom of the ocean with a sonar device. They had been looking for abandoned fishing nets that could be harmful to sea life when they stumbled upon an Enigma machine from World War II. For a bit of background, Enigma machines were created by the Nazis in the 1930s and 1940s to encode military messages. The codes were eventually broken by the British, and the whole back-and-forth struggle actually helped to create modern computers. Earlier in the year, a different Enigma machine known as the 4-rotor M4 Enigma cipher machine sold at an auction for almost $450,000. However, that machine was in perfect condition. Experts guess the machine found at the bottom of the Baltic won't be worth quite as much money since it's covered in barnacles. Nonetheless, any Enigma machine from Germany is worth at least a bit of money to collectors, as the country ordered all remaining Enigma machines to be destroyed around 1945. This was at the same time that the Germans sunk about 50 submarines in Geltinger Bay to keep them out of the hands of the Allies. According to one of the archaeologists who discovered the Enigma machine, he figures it must have gone overboard with one of the subs. Number 7. A monster goldfish. Inside a small lake in North Carolina, a routine water quality test resulted in the discovery of a lifetime. According to the Parks and Recreation officials, a 9-pound goldfish was found living in Oak Grove Lake. The fish was allegedly happy and healthy, but nobody knows exactly how long the goldfish has been living there or how it came to be so large. The average goldfish weighs a maximum of 1 pound, making this one a literal monster. The last study of Oak Grove Lake had been 10 years ago, and the Department of Parks and Recreation had not found any goldfish back then. The lake is normally filled with bass and catfish. It's likely that somebody tossed their pet goldfish into the lake rather than take care of it, and instead of dying, the goldfish turned into a huge monster. Interestingly enough, goldfish are actually able to live for 15 years in captivity. Maybe when the department goes to check on the lake in another decade, there'll be even more giant goldfish. Number 6. Mongolian shipwreck. We always hear about Roman shipwrecks, pirate shipwrecks, and lost vessels from World War I and World War II. But what about Mongolian shipwrecks? You probably didn't even know that the Mongolians had a fleet of ships, considering they were mostly nomadic people. And after all, today Mongolia is a landlocked country. But according to the University of the Ryukyus in Okinawa, Japan, large parts of a Mongolian ship that researchers believe to be part of a 13th century invasion fleet has been discovered sitting at the bottom of the ocean near Nagasaki. The discovery of this sunken vessel is the first physical wreck related to any attempt by the Mongols to invade Japan. And yes, the invasion would have been orchestrated at the same time that Kublai Khan ruled the entire empire. The archaeology team found the complete hull of the ship roughly 75 feet beneath the ocean's surface. Researchers are now hoping that the wreckage of the vessel will provide more details on the attacks by Mongolians between 1274 and 1281. Most of the information from that time has only been deciphered through drawings and vague documents. There have been no real artifacts found. Still, it's commonly believed among historians that at least 4,400 Mongolian ships sank off the coast of Japan during a poorly orchestrated mission to occupy the country. It was a disaster choice for Kublai Khan, and hopefully more information can be gathered when more destroyed vessels are found. Number 5. World War I grenade in the river. We're going back to the river now, but this time we're going to Michigan. And it's not guns that were discovered, it was a grenade from World War I. But this story is very similar to the brothers who found the 20 guns. That's because a fisherman was using a magnet fishing rod in hopes of finding something interesting inside the Grand River, when he instead pulled out a literal explosive. According to the report from CNN, Joseph Alexander fished an antique mortar grenade out of the river, and he did it while standing on the 6th Street Bridge in downtown Grand Rapids. The bomb was a legitimate German Granatenwerfer, which was used in the First World War. Considering its age, it was probably innocuous for quite some time already. Still, the bomb squad came out to take care of it, and they did a controlled explosion using C4 to destroy the bomb once and for all. As for the fisherman, it turns out he really did find something interesting. His magnet was tied to a 65-foot cord. He told CNN that other than the bomb, he had only found random hooks, chunks of rebar, bike tires, and other pieces of garbage. The bomb was his first interesting find. He's just lucky it didn't end up being his last. Number 4. Shark attack remains. The last thing anyone wants to find underwater is human remains. However, that's exactly what happened in Australia just recently, when police were forced to call off a desperate search for a father of 2 who had gone missing. It all started when Andrew Sharp was attacked in front of his friends and horrified witnesses in Wiley Bay while having a nice day surfing. According to the shocked witnesses, Andrew was attacked by a giant monster shark, dragged under the waves, and then he vanished. Several hours later, his surfboard was found floating towards the shore with bite marks taken out of it. It was like something out of a horrifying shark movie. And then, finally, police were forced to call off the search when a shredded wetsuit was found in the water. Unfortunately, this is just one of those things that can happen when you go swimming in the shark's domain. Andrew was an experienced surfer of 40 years and loved the ocean. But sometimes the thing you love just doesn't love you back. Number 3. B17F Blackjack wreckage. The story of the B17F Blackjack is fascinating. It all began in July of 1942 when the airplane was delivered to the United States Army. Blackjack was one of the very first flying fortress bombers ever constructed at the Boeing factory located in Seattle during the Second World War. The Blackjack was then flown to Australia, where it joined the battle in the Pacific in early September. It was assigned to the 63rd Bombardment Squadron in Port Moresby. The plane was eventually assigned to Captain Kenneth McCuller, who nicknamed the airplane Blackjack because the last 2 digits of the serial number were 21. Unfortunately, Captain McCuller died in April of 1943 during a crash, but not inside the Blackjack. The Blackjack went on flying until July 10th of 1943. It was on a mission to bomb Japanese airfields when it hit a violent storm near the coast of New Guinea and crash-landed. The crew of 10 men were able to escape Blackjack as she sank into the ocean, and luckily they swam to shore and were helped by the local villagers. The plane sank to around 150 feet below the ocean. The pilots were rescued, and the plane sat undisturbed for 43 years. It wasn't seen again until 1986, when 3 Australians stumbled upon the wreckage totally by accident. Since then, there have been more dives to check out the legendary Blackjack, and the plane even got its own movie made. Number 2. Trove of ancient gold coins. There's nothing better than finding an ancient underwater treasure. This total fluke of a discovery happened in 2015, when a man was scuba diving near the old Israeli port town of Caesarea. This person had gone diving in the area many times before, but this was the first time that he saw a special glimmer in the sand. Upon closer inspection, he found real gold coins with Arabic script written on both sides. It looked like he found the bounty from a lost shipwreck buried just beneath the beach in the sand. Now, most amateur explorers would have pocketed the treasure and taken it home with them, but instead, this guy went to find the officials, and they called the Israeli Antiquities Authority and it became an archaeological discovery. Over the course of a few days, at least 2,000 coins were found under the water. These coins were 24-karat gold and had a purity upward of 95%. While this is definitely great for the archaeological community, imagine if the diver had kept all that gold for himself. He would have been rich. The coins themselves came from somewhere between 996 and 1036 AD. Many of them were minted in the cities of Cairo and Palermo, but were likely traded in the Israeli city of Caesarea, seeing as it was an extremely prosperous city during the 11th century. The coins would have been a lot of money to the people who lived there, with a single coin equaling the full month's salary of a military soldier. With that much money, you could have hired 2,000 soldiers for a month to do whatever you wanted them to. Number 1. Ancient remains in Florida River. In the dirty waters of the Ausila River in Florida, researchers have discovered the oldest evidence of human beings in the Americas. And I'm not just talking about human bones. Researchers have discovered stone tools that they believe were used thousands of years ago to butcher and prepare a mastodon. Much of the evidence points to early human habitation about 14,000 years ago, almost 2,000 years earlier than scientists had previously assumed. The tools, animal bones, and mastodon tusks are providing the scientific community with compelling evidence that humans had invaded and spread across North America and South America much earlier than anyone had previously thought. As for the discovery of the artifacts, they were brought to the surface during 890 dives by researchers who fearlessly dove into a massive sinkhole around 35 feet deep near Tallahassee to retrieve the relics. The dives went on from between 2012 and 2014. An anthropologist from Florida State University dove into the sinkhole 126 times, and she believes that the nomadic hunter-gatherers of the time had been following large prey like the extinct mastodon from watering hole to watering hole while hunting them. Also, bones were found that appear to be from dogs, which suggests the earliest men in North America, over 7,000 years before the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids, had dogs as companions. This is one of the most incredible finds in recent United States history, not only for the US, but for the history of the entire world. Which of these aquatic finds was the most fascinating? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you again soon for another fantastic video.